I made a mistake over here. See, instead of making a double vertical decrease, for some reason I knitted 3 stitches together, and that shows. If it were a simple knit and purl stitch pattern, I would ladder down a few stitches and then fix the mistake and rebuild those stitches back to the needle, but not in lace. Because lace is built by sets of yarn overs and decreases, the farthest we can go when we ladder down is the nearest yarn over, and then we are stuck. When we want to fix mistakes in lace, we have to deal with the pattern repeat. So we're gonna unravel all stitches in the pattern repeat that holds the mistake, then fix the mistake and rebuild those stitches back. Tedious, yes, but this kind of a keyhole knitting surgery helps us to keep the rest of the work intact. We don't have to unravel the whole part of the work, just one pattern repeat. To perform this surgery, we need 2 double-pointed needles in the same size as the needles you used to make the project. 1 needle, any needle, not just double-pointed, it could be single-pointed or whatever, any needle in a size that is smaller for picking up stitches, and we'll also need a hair clip. Yes, it is unusual, but you'll see it's a very helpful tool. So in a right side row, work to a spot where the pattern repeats that holds the mistake begins. I usually place stitch markers to separate my repeats. So for me, it's super easy to see when a pattern repeat begins. If you don't have stitch markers in your work, that's fine too. Simply work to that first stitch of the pattern repeat that has the mistake in it. And then note the number of row the number of row of the pattern repeat that you've just started to work, because that's important. That will help us when we rebuild the rows. So for example, my pattern repeat has 4 rows, and right now I've just started row 1 of the pattern repeat. So I kind of remember that, or you can make a note just in case. Then slip the stitches of the pattern repeat that has the mistake in it off the left needle. It's scary, yes, but see, they're not running away really, so it's not that scary. And to make it even better, make sure you place the work on a flat surface, kind of an operating table, and the surface is well lit, so you can see your stitches clearly. Now let's unravel the rows one by one. It is very important to be careful because we don't want to disrupt the fabric, and because that will make things even more complicated. So what we do, from the back of the fabric, we grab the strand that forms the first row, and then we simply pull it out, just like this. And then we take that hair clip and clip that strand. Why we do that? Because it is super important to keep those strands in the same sequence as they happen to be in the work. So we're gonna clip the strands one by one to keep them in sequence. That's where hair clip is indispensable. And then we do it again. So we undo next row, just like that, and clip that strand. And we do it again until we get to a row with a mistake. So for me, this row is right below the row that I've just unraveled. Again, clip the strand. See, it helps us to keep the strands in sequence. That's very important. Count the strands. If you have an even number, then unravel one more row before you move to the next step. Because when we unravel all rows, we need to have even number so that we know that we start with the right side row of the pattern repeat. So for me, it's okay. I have 3. I'm fine. I'm ready to unravel the last row, the row where I'm gonna pick up stitches. And I do that with a smaller needle, with a needle in a smaller size, because it's easier. And see, I don't yank the yarn from the stitches, no. Instead, I take that needle in my left hand and I insert it from front to back into the stitches that I'm gonna pick up, while the yarn is still there. This is how I know the stitches will be safe and sound. And my pattern repeat starts, as you see, with the yarn over. So I ignore the yarn over, there is nothing to pick up here. I go into the stitches of the decrease right away. And because the decrease is made with 3 stitches, so I insert the needle into the 3 stitches in one shot. And only then I pull the strand out. And then I keep picking up stitches one by one, just like this. Front to back, unravel. Front to back, unravel. Front to back, unravel. My pattern repeat has 6 stitches, so I picked up all of them. Now I'm satisfied, and I have my last strand that I'm gonna put in the hair clip. Here we go. So I have 4 strands, and I know that the next row that I'm gonna rebuild, the first row that I'm gonna rebuild, is gonna be a right side row. So now we have the stitches, we don't have a mistake anymore, and we're gonna rebuild these stitches one by one. So we take the first strand from the clip, and we take one of the needles, double pointed needles in the same size as your working needles, in the right hand, and I'm gonna hide this thing so it doesn't get in the way, so you see everything clearly. And we're gonna follow the pattern repeat, the instructions for this row of the pattern repeat. And I know that I started row 1 and my repeat has 4 rows. So I unraveled row 4, 3, 2, and 1 of my pattern repeat. So right now I'm gonna rebuild row 1. I'm gonna follow the instructions for row 1. And my pattern tells me to knit 3 stitches, and that's what I'm doing. And then I'm gonna make a yarn over. But even as I get to the yarn over, I already feel that the strand becomes too small. So the key here is not to try to hold the strand the way that you usually hold the yarn. It's more like guiding the yarn. So if I need to make a yarn over, I'll simply dip the needle under the strand, and then I make my decrease the same way as I usually make it, as I should have made it before I made a mistake. So the double vertical decrease, we slip 2 stitches, and then we knit the stitch. And see, I go into that stitch. I'm supposed to knit it, but I know my strand is too short to really hold it, so I don't even try to do it. What I do, I help it. I wrap it around the tip of the right needle and pull it through. And then I finish off my double vertical decrease. The last stitch in my pattern instructions is a yarn over. So I have just enough yarn to dip under that yarn and get that yarn over on the needle. So it's not comfortable, but it's doable as long as you don't try to hold the yarn. Simply guide the yarn, help it. Now that we finished the first row, I put aside the needle in a smaller size. We don't need it anymore. Instead, I take my double pointed needle in a bigger size. So I rebuilt row 1 of my pattern repeat. Now I get to row 2. So I could basically turn the work and do the same thing with the wrong side facing me. But it is easier to stay on the right side. And because many lace stitch patterns have a rest row where we simply purl all stitches on the wrong side of the work, we can stay on the right side and knit all stitches on this side of the work. To make it possible, we slide the stitches to the other tip of the double pointed needle. That's why we use double pointed needle, so we are able to slide the stitches to the other tip of it. And then we have, basically this is a mess, right? So it's good that we have the hair clip that keeps the strands in sequence. So now we take the next strand and we knit all stitches. Remember I told you it's difficult to hold the yarn as we re-knit the row? Well, it gets even more difficult when you hold yarn in your right hand. So I'm gonna take that strand and simply guide it. I will wrap it around the needle and knit. Insert, wrap, and knit. And see, just my fingers, I don't really hold it in my hand like this. Just the fingers that are working. And knit. And I keep doing that until I knit all 6 stitches. And with every stitch I knit, I have shorter and shorter strand that is more difficult to manage, but it's still doable. See, the last stitch is quite awkward to make, but that's okay. We survive. Another thing is, if you notice that some stitches are looser than others because it's really difficult to distribute the yarn properly when we work in such unusual conditions, then right after you finish the row, it helps to redistribute the yarn just with your fingers, just like this, to make sure the yarn is equally distributed between stitches. And then we keep rebuilding the rows. So I slide the stitches to the other tip of the needle. I release one strand, that is the next. See, it's very helpful. I can't stress it enough. And my stitch markers do want to run away from me. That's okay, I'll let them. And then I'm on my 3rd row of the pattern repeat. So it starts with the yarn over, then I make that decrease, followed by another yarn over, and then I finish with 3 knits. 1, 2, and let's see how difficult it will be to knit the last stitch. Doable. Not fun, but doable. And I'm to my last row. I have just 1 strand left. So I get it from the hair clip and I knit all stitches in my rest row. This is row 4 of my pattern repeat. Is it an awkward process? Yes. We have lots of needles, we have short yarn strand, but always think that it is worth it because it saves us from unraveling a huge part of our project. And here we go. So we rebuilt the rows, and you see there is no mistake. The pattern looks as good as new. And now we have 2 choices. We could either continue to knit the stitches, to work the stitches in pattern from that spare needle, or we can slide the stitches to the left tip of the needle and slip them directly to the working needle. I usually prefer to do that because that avoids that unnecessary clutter. So we did good. The pinhole knitting surgery is successfully complete. We are back on track no mistakes, and we can continue to work on our project as if nothing has ever happened. If you find this tutorial helpful, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon to be notified every time I publish a new video. Happy knitting, my friend. I'll talk to you in the next tutorial.